I'm sitting on my porch tonight, the old wooden rocker creaking under my weight, the kind of sound that's become a friend over the years. The air smells of rain-soaked earth, and the streetlights cast long shadows across my small yard in Queens. I'm 57 now, and the lines on my face tell stories I'd rather forget. But you can't outrun your past, no matter how fast you move or how deep you bury it. My hands, calloused from years of labor, clutch a chipped coffee mug, the one Ellen used to sip from every morning. It's empty now, like so much else in my life. I'm telling you this story because it's time to let the truth breathe, to let it cut through the silence that's choked me for too long. It's a story of betrayal, of family, of revenge that didn't feel sweet when it came. And it starts with a phone call that shattered the quiet I'd built around my heart. 3 months ago, I was in my workshop, sanding down a cedar table I'd been crafting for a client. The smell of wood and varnish filled the air, grounding me in a way nothing else could since Ellen passed. My hands moved with muscle memory, smoothing edges, feeling the grain beneath my fingers. The radio played low, some old Johnny Cash tune about hurt and redemption. I was lost in it, in the rhythm of work, when my phone buzzed on the workbench. I ignored it at first. Telemarketers, probably, or another scam about my car's warranty. But it buzzed again, insistent, like a wasp trapped in a jar. I wiped my hands on my apron and picked it up. The number was unfamiliar, but the area code was local. My thumb hesitated over the screen before I answered. Frank. The voice was soft, tentative, but it hit me like a hammer to the chest. It was Daniel, my son. My only child. The boy I hadn't spoken to in 7 years, not since the night he walked out of this house, his mother's tears still wet on the floor. Daniel, I said, my voice rougher than the sandpaper in my hand. Didn't expect to hear from you. I know, Dad, I know. He sounded older, wearier. I've been thinking about you. About us. Can we talk? In person, I mean. I want to see you. I stood there, frozen, the phone pressed to my ear. The workshop felt smaller, the walls closing in. Memories flooded back. Daniel as a boy, laughing as we built model planes together. Daniel as a teenager, sullen and distant after Ellen's diagnosis. Daniel at 30, screaming at me that I'd never understood him, that I'd held him back. The last time I saw him, he'd slammed the door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. Ellen's favorite, the one with us at Coney Island, all three of us smiling like nothing could ever break us. Why now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I miss you, Dad. I miss family. Me and Lisa, we're settled now. We've got a place in Long Island. I want you to come for dinner. Tomorrow night, please. Lisa, his wife. I'd met her once, at their wedding, a rushed affair in a courthouse because Daniel said they couldn't wait. Ellen had been too sick to go, and I'd sat there alone, feeling like an outsider at my own son's milestone. Lisa had seemed kind, but guarded, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. I didn't know her, not really. And I didn't know this version of Daniel, either. I wanted to say no, to protect the fragile piece I'd carved out in my solitude. But Ellen's voice echoed in my head, soft and certain, family's worth fighting for, Frank. Even when it hurts. She'd said that when Daniel was 16, after he'd been caught stealing from her purse to buy weed. She'd cried, but she'd never given up on him. I couldn't either. All right, I said finally. What time? 7. I'll text you the address. Dad, thank you. His voice cracked, and for a moment, I heard the boy who'd clung to me during thunderstorms, afraid of the dark. When the call ended, I stood there, staring at the phone like it might bite me. The workshop was quiet now, the radio off, the only sound my own uneven breathing. I set the phone down and picked up the sandpaper again, but my hands were shaking. I couldn't work, not anymore. I walked into the house, past the dining table where Ellen and I used to play cards on Sunday nights, past the living room where her knitting still sat in a basket, untouched since she died. Upstairs, in our bedroom, I opened the closet and pulled out my old grey suit, the one I'd worn to her funeral. It still fit, though it hung looser now, my frame leaner from grief and time. I laid it on the bed, smoothing the fabric like it could smooth away the years of silence between me and Daniel. The next day, I drove to Long Island, the city fading into suburbs that grew greener and grander with every mile. My old pickup truck looked out of place among the sleek SUVs and manicured lawns. Daniel's address led me to a gated community, the kind with security booths and fountains that sparkled in the evening light. The guard waved me through after checking my name, and I parked in front of a house that looked like it belonged in a magazine. 2 stories, brick facade, windows that gleamed like they were polished daily. A far cry from the cramped apartment Daniel had lived in last I knew. I grabbed the bottle of bourbon I'd brought, a peace offering, something to share over stories of better times. My boots crunched on the gravel driveway as I approached the door, my heart pounding harder than it had in years. I rang the bell, and the chime echoed like a church organ. The door opened, and there was Daniel, taller than I remembered, his hair thinning but neatly combed, his suit crisp and expensive. He looked like a stranger who shared my son's face. "Dad," he said, and his arms wrapped around me in a hug that felt both desperate and rehearsed. "You came. Couldn't say no to you," I said, managing a smile. "Not after all this time." Lisa appeared behind him, her dark hair pulled into an elegant bun, her dress a soft blue that caught the light. "Frank," she said, her voice warm but careful, "it's so good to see you." She kissed my cheek, and I caught a whiff of perfume that reminded me of Ellen's, though sharper, less comforting. The house was a marvel. Hardwood floors, high ceilings, art on the walls that looked like it cost more than my truck. A young woman in a black uniform took my coat, her eyes downcast, her movements quick and silent. "That's Elena," Lisa said, waving a hand. "She helps us keep this place in order." We moved to the dining room, where a table was set with precision, white linen, silver cutlery, crystal glasses that sparkled under a chandelier. The smell of roasted lamb filled the air, rich and savory, a dish Ellen used to make for special occasions. I handed Daniel the bourbon, and his eyes lit up. "You remembered I love this stuff," he said, though I hadn't known that at all. I'd chosen it because it was what Ellen and I used to sip on quiet nights. "Thought we could share a drink," I said, settling into a chair at the head of the table. Daniel and Lisa sat on either side, their smiles bright but strained, like actors playing a part they hadn't rehearsed enough. Elena served the first course, some kind of salad with ingredients I couldn't pronounce. Daniel poured the bourbon, generous pours that sloshed in the heavy glasses. "To family," he said, raising his glass. "To coming back together." We clinked glasses, and I took a sip, the bourbon burning smooth down my throat. It tasted off, somehow, sharper than I remembered, but I chalked it up to nerves. We ate, and they asked about my workshop, my life, my plans. Their questions were polite but pointed. "How's business, Dad? Ever think about retiring? What's the shop worth these days?" I answered vaguely, my mind drifting to Ellen, to the way she'd always known when Daniel was hiding something. "He's got your eyes, Frank, but he's got secrets, too." The main course came, lamb with rosemary, just like Ellen's recipe. "How'd you know this was my favorite?" I asked Lisa, trying to keep the conversation light. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Daniel mentioned it. We wanted tonight to be perfect." I nodded, but something felt wrong. The bourbon was hitting me harder than it should, my head fuzzy, my thoughts sluggish. I'd only had one glass, maybe two. I glanced at Daniel, who was watching me closely, his fingers drumming on the table, a nervous habit he'd had since he was a kid. Lisa's smile was fixed, her eyes darting to Daniel every few seconds. The room felt too warm, the chandelier too bright. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a sharp vibration that cut through the haze. I excused myself, fumbling for it as I stood. Probably just a client, I said, though I didn't get calls this late. The screen showed an unknown number, same area code as Daniel's. I opened the message, and my heart stopped. Get out now. Don't drink anymore. They're not who you think. I stared at the words, my pulse pounding in my ears. The dining room seemed to tilt, the walls pressing in. Daniel's voice broke through my thoughts. Everything okay, Dad? Yeah, I lied, slipping the phone back into my pocket. Just need to use the bathroom. Lisa pointed down the hall. Second door on the right. I nodded, my legs unsteady as I walked away. The hallway was lined with photos. Daniel and Lisa on a beach, at a gala, smiling in front of this very house. No pictures of me, of Ellen, of the family we used to be. My head swam, the bourbon's effect stronger than they should be. I passed the bathroom door and kept going, drawn to a glass door at the end of the hall that led to a patio. I needed air, needed to think. Outside, the night was cool, the stars hidden by clouds. I pulled out my phone again and reread the message. They're not who you think. Who sent this? And why? My fingers trembled as I typed a reply. Who is this? What's happening? The response came instantly. You're being drugged. The bourbon. Leave now. Don't tell them. My knees buckled, and I gripped the patio railing to steady myself. Drugged. By Daniel. My own son. Memories flashed. Ellen's warnings about his temper, his recklessness, the way he'd always wanted more than we could give. I thought of the bourbon, the strange aftertaste, the way Daniel had poured it so eagerly. My vision blurred, not from tears but from whatever was coursing through me. I stumbled toward the gate at the edge of the property, my shoes sinking into the soft lawn. The street beyond was quiet, lined with houses that hid their own secrets. I opened my ride-sharing app, my hands shaking so badly I could barely type. A car was 5 minutes away. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to leave. As I waited, another text came. They want your business. Your savings. Everything. Don't trust them. I leaned against a tree, my breath ragged. The life I'd built with Ellen, our workshop, our home, the legacy we'd dreamed of passing to Daniel, was it all a target? Had my son become someone who'd betray me for money? I thought of Ellen's last days, her frail hand in mine, her whispered hope that Daniel would find his way. I'd promised her I'd keep trying, keep believing in him. But now, standing in the dark, I wasn't sure who he was anymore. The car pulled up, and I climbed in, giving the driver an address a few blocks away from my house. I needed time to think, to plan. As we drove, I dialed the number from the texts. It rang once, twice, then a voice answered, low, cautious, female. Mr. Harper, you're safe. Who are you? I demanded, my voice hoarse. How do you know what's happening? I can't say much. I'm close to them. I heard things I wasn't supposed to. They're planning to take everything you have, Frank. The bourbon had something in it, something to make you sign papers you wouldn't remember signing. My stomach churned. Papers? What kind? Transfer of assets. Your workshop, your bank accounts, your house. They've been planning it for weeks. I closed my eyes, the weight of her words crushing me. Why are you telling me this? Because I've seen what they do to people who trust them. I couldn't let it happen to you. The call ended abruptly, and I stared at the phone, my mind racing. The driver glanced back, his brow furrowed. You okay, sir? No, I said, the word heavy with truth. But I will be. Back in Queens, I sat in my living room, the silence deafening. Ellen's knitting basket was still there, her needles poking out like accusations. I'd failed her, failed us, by letting Daniel drift so far. But I wasn't done fighting. Not yet. I called my lawyer, a gruff man named Carl who'd handled Ellen's estate. Frank, it's late, he said, but he listened as I told him everything. The dinner, the text, the drugged bourbon. Get your accounts locked down, he said. Change your passwords, alert your bank. I'll draft a temporary injunction to protect your assets. And Frank, don't go back there alone. I hung up, my hands still trembling. The bourbon's effects were fading, but the betrayal lingered, sharp as a blade. I thought of Daniel's hug, Lisa's smile, the way they'd played the part of family. And I thought of Ellen, who'd always believed in second chances. Could I give Daniel one more, or was this the end? As dawn broke, I made coffee in Ellen's mug, the familiar weight grounding me. I had a choice to make, run from this pain or face it head on. Ellen's voice whispered again, family's worth fighting for. But what do you do when family fights against you? Everything. She promised to send a patrol car to my house, but I knew I couldn't just wait. I spent the day preparing. I moved important documents to a safe deposit box, backed up my computer to an external drive, and hid the bourbon bottle in a locked cabinet. I called a neighbor, an old friend named Joe, and asked him to keep an eye out. And I waited, the hours crawling by, each one heavier than the last. As night fell, I sat in my living room, the lights off, the new deadbolts gleaming in the dark. My old hunting rifle, a relic from my father, was propped against the couch, not loaded, but a reminder that I wasn't helpless. The house was silent, the only sound my own breathing. I thought of Ellen, her strength, her love. I thought of Daniel, the boy I'd raised, the man I didn't know. And I thought of the fight ahead, not just for my life, but for the truth. Headlights flashed through the window, a car pulling into my driveway. My pulse raced, my hands tightening on the rifle's stock. The doorbell rang, sharp and insistent, cutting through the quiet like a blade. The doorbell's chime sliced through the darkness of my living room, each note a hammer against my nerves. I sat frozen, the rifle's cold stock pressed against my palm, my breath shallow in the heavy silence. The headlights from the car in my driveway cut sharp beams through the curtains, painting jagged shadows across the walls. I'd been waiting for this moment, ever since that last text, "They're coming for you. Tonight, be ready." My heart pounded, a drumbeat of fear and resolve. At 57, I'd faced loss, Ellen's death, Daniel's betrayal, but nothing like this. This was my home, my sanctuary, and now it felt like a battlefield. I stood slowly, my joints protesting, and moved to the window, keeping low. Peering through a gap in the curtains, I saw a sleek black SUV, its engine still running, exhaust curling in the cool night air. Two figures stepped out. Daniel, his silhouette unmistakable, and Lisa, her movements quick and nervous. They stood by the car, their voices low but urgent, words lost in the hum of the engine. I couldn't hear them, but I didn't need to. Their presence here, unannounced, at midnight, was answer enough. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, the screen glowing like a beacon. Another text from the unknown number. Elena, I was sure now. They brought someone, not police. Dangerous. Stay hidden. My stomach twisted. Someone else. I scanned the driveway again, and there, stepping from the back of the SUV, was a third figure, tall, broad-shouldered, moving with the deliberate calm of a predator. Victor, I thought, the name Elena had mentioned, the man Daniel owed. The kind of man who didn't negotiate. I gripped the rifle tighter, though I knew it was more for comfort than defense. It wasn't loaded, hadn't been since my father taught me to hunt decades ago. I wasn't a violent man, never had been. Ellen used to say my strength was in my hands, not in hurting but in building. But tonight, those hands felt useless, trembling with the weight of what was coming. The doorbell rang again, sharper this time, followed by a heavy knock. "Dad," Daniel's voice cut through the door, strained but loud. "It's me. Open up. We need to talk." I stayed silent, my back pressed against the wall. Memories flooded unbidden. Daniel at 5, clinging to my leg when I left for work. At 12, helping me plane wood in the workshop. At 20, his face hard with anger as he blamed me for his failures. Ellen's voice whispered through the haze, "He's still your son, Frank. Don't give up on him." But how do you save someone who's trying to destroy you? Another knock, harder. Dad, please, I know you're in there. Daniel's tone shifted, a mix of desperation and something darker. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Lisa's voice followed, softer, pleading. Frank, we're worried about you. Let us in. We just want to make things right. Make things right. The words twisted like a knife. They'd tried to drug me, to steal my life's work, and now they were here, playing the part of concerned family. I glanced at the rifle, then set it down. No, this wasn't about guns or violence. This was about truth, and I needed to face it head on. I moved to the door, my hand hovering over the deadbolt. Elena's warning echoed. Dangerous, but so did Ellen's faith in second chances. I unlocked the door and opened it just enough to see them. Daniel stood closest, his face pale under the porch light, his eyes darting nervously. Lisa was behind him, her arms crossed, her expression a careful mask of concern. And the third man, Victor, I presumed, stood a step back, his face half-shadowed, his presence heavy as a storm cloud. Dad, Daniel said, relief flickering across his face. Thank God. Can we come in? Who's he? I nodded toward the stranger, keeping my voice steady. Daniel hesitated, his eyes flicking to Victor. A friend. He's helping us sort things out. Sort what out? I kept my hand on the door, ready to slam it shut. You come to my house at midnight with a stranger, after what you tried to pull at dinner. You think I'm stupid, Daniel. His face hardened, but Lisa stepped forward, her hands raised. Frank, please, it's not what you think. We made a mistake, okay. We were desperate, but we're here to apologize, to explain. Explain. I laughed, the sound bitter. You spiked my drink. You had papers ready to take my business, my home. What's there to explain? Victor spoke then, his voice low and smooth, like oil over gravel. Mr. Harper, let's not make this unpleasant. Your son owes me a great deal of money. I'm here to ensure he pays. You can help us resolve this quietly, or... He let the sentence hang, his eyes cold, unblinking. My blood ran cold, but I held his gaze. Or what? You'll do to me what you're doing to him. I'm not afraid of you. Victor's lips twitched, not quite a smile. Brave words, but bravery doesn't pay debts. Daniel's voice broke in, frantic. Dad, just listen. I messed up, okay. I got in over my head, gambling, bad investments. Victor's giving me a way out, but I need your help. The workshop, the house, it's more than enough to cover it. You don't even use half the money you make. Why can't you help me? I stared at him, my son, the boy I'd raised to be better than this. You think I built that workshop for money? That house, it's not about profit, Daniel. It's about your mother, about the life we made together. You want to sell her memory to save your own skin. His face crumpled, and for a moment, I saw the boy he'd been, scared and lost. But then his eyes hardened again. You never got it, Dad. You and Mom, always so perfect, so righteous. I had to make my own way, and I failed. You gonna let me die for it? Lisa touched his arm, her voice soft but urgent. Daniel, stop. Frank, we didn't want to hurt you. We thought you'd agree if you were relaxed. If you understood how much we needed it. Relaxed. I spat the word. You drugged me. You think that's love. Family. Victor stepped closer, his presence filling the doorway. Enough talk. Mr. Harper, you have assets. Your son has debts. Sign the papers, and we all walk away. Refuse, and things get messy. My hand tightened on the doorframe. I thought of Ellen, her strength in those final days. Her refusal to let cancer break her spirit. She'd faced death with courage. I could face this. Get out, I said, my voice low but firm. All of you. I'm not signing anything. Victor's eyes narrowed, but before he could respond, headlights flashed down the street. A patrol car, its lights off but unmistakable. Torres had kept her promise. Victor noticed it too, his posture stiffening. You called the cops, he said, not a question. I'm not as stupid as you think, I replied, stepping back, ready to close the door. Daniel lunged forward, grabbing my arm. Dad, don't do this. You don't know what they'll do to me. I yanked free, my heart breaking even as anger surged. You did this to yourself, Daniel. You chose this. The patrol car stopped, and 2 officers stepped out, their hands resting on their holsters. Mr. Harper, one called, her voice calm but authoritative. Everything okay? Victor raised his hands, his smile cold. Just a family discussion, officer. No trouble here. Doesn't look that way, she said, her eyes scanning the scene. Mr. Harper, you want these folks on your property? No, I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. I want them gone. The officers moved closer, and Victor's calm cracked, just for a second. This isn't over, Harper, he said quietly, then turned to Daniel. Let's go. Daniel looked at me, his eyes pleading, but I turned away. I couldn't bear to see him like this, not after everything. Lisa followed him, her face pale, her steps unsteady. The SUV peeled out, its tires screeching against the pavement. The officers stayed, taking my statement, their questions methodical but kind. I showed them the photos, told them about the bourbon, the texts, Elena's warnings. They promised to escalate the case, to coordinate with Torres. Stay vigilant, the female officer said. We'll have a car patrol the area tonight. When they left, I locked the door, the new deadbolts clicking into place with a finality that echoed in my bones. I sank into my armchair, the one Ellen used to read in, her scent long faded from the cushions. My phone buzzed again, another text from Elena. You're safe. For now. They're angry. Be careful. I typed a reply. Thank you, Elena. I owe you. But it felt inadequate. She'd risked everything. Her job, her safety, maybe her life, to warn me. I thought of her daughter in Mexico, the sacrifices she made for family. I'd meant what I said to Maria in the original story. I'd offer Elena a job, a chance to start over, just as I'd done with Maria. But first, I had to survive this. The next week was a blur of precautions and paranoia. I installed security cameras, changed every password, moved more assets into protected accounts. Torres called daily, her updates grim but determined. They'd traced the vial's contents to midazolam, a controlled substance, and found financial records linking Daniel to Victor, a known loan shark with ties to organized crime. We're building a case, she said. But we need more. If your housekeeper can testify, it'd seal it. I tried reaching Elena, but her number went to voicemail, then stopped working altogether. I drove to Long Island, parked a block from Daniel's house, but it was empty, the windows dark, a realtor's sign staked in the lawn. They'd fled, or been forced to. I left a note in the mailbox for Elena, offering her a job, a safe place, but I never heard back. Days turned into weeks, and the silence was worse than the danger. I worked in the shop, sanding wood, building tables, but my heart wasn't in it. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow outside, made me jump. I kept Ellen's photo on my workbench, her smile a reminder of what I was fighting for. But I also kept Daniel's old baseball glove beside it, a relic of the boy I'd loved, the boy I still hoped to save. One night, as I locked up the shop, my phone rang, not a text, but a call from an unknown number. I answered, my voice cautious. Hello, Dad. Daniel's voice was hoarse, broken. I need to see you. Alone, please. Where are you? I asked, my heart racing. A motel, off Route 17. I'm in trouble, Dad. Real trouble. Victor's men. They're coming for me. I closed my eyes, Ellen's voice whispering, family's worth fighting for. But so was the truth. What do you want from me, Daniel? A chance, he said, his voice cracking. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But I'm your son, please. I wanted to believe him, wanted to believe there was still good in him. But I'd learned the hard way that trust could be a weapon. I'll come, I said finally. But this is the last time, Daniel. No more lies. I hung up, called Torres, and told her everything. She insisted on sending an undercover unit to the motel, but I refused a wire. This was between me and my son, one last chance to see who he really was. The motel was a rundown place, its neon sign flickering, the parking lot littered with cigarette butts. I parked near the office, my eyes scanning for Daniel's SUV. It wasn't there, but a beat-up sedan sat in the corner, its driver's side door ajar. I approached room 12, the number Daniel had given, my hand on the pepper spray in my pocket, a precaution I'd started carrying. I knocked, and the door opened slowly. Daniel stood there, unshaven, his eyes bloodshot, his suit wrinkled. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Dad," he said, stepping aside. "Thank you." The room was dim, the air stale with sweat and fear. No Lisa, no Victor, just Daniel, his hands shaking as he closed the door. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I didn't want any of this. I thought I could handle it, but it got out of control." "Out of control," I said, my voice sharp. "You tried to drug me, Daniel. You tried to steal everything your mother and I built. And now you're running from a loan shark. What the hell happened to you?" He sank onto the bed, his head in his hands. "It started small, poker games, bets on horses. I was good at it, Dad. I won big for a while. Then I lost bigger. Victor offered me a loan, said it was no big deal. But it kept growing, and when I couldn't pay, he made it clear what happens if I don't." I stood by the door, my hand still on the pepper spray. "So you thought stealing from me was the answer? Betraying your own father?" "I didn't want to hurt you," he said, tears streaming down his face. "Lisa pushed me. She said it was the only way. I was scared, Dad. I'm still scared. I wanted to believe him, wanted to wrap my arms around him like I had when he was a boy. But I saw the papers in his office, the vile, the calculated cruelty. You had choices, Daniel. You always did. Why didn't you come to me when it started? Why didn't you trust me?" "Because I was ashamed," he said, his voice breaking. "You and Mom, you were always so perfect. I couldn't live up to that. I couldn't admit I'd failed." I stepped closer, my anger softening despite myself. "We weren't perfect. We struggled, too. But we fought for each other, not against each other. You could have come home." He looked up, his eyes searching mine. Can we start over?" Before I could answer, the door burst open, and Victor stepped in, a gun in his hand, his smile cold as ice. "Touching," he said. "But time's up, Harper. You're both going to help me get what I'm owed." My heart stopped, but I didn't move. Torres' unit was out there, somewhere, waiting. I just had to keep him talking. "You think a gun's going to solve this?" I said, my voice steady. "The police are already onto you." Victor's smile didn't waver. "Police don't scare me, but you should be scared. Sign the papers, old man, or your son's debt becomes a body count." Daniel stood, his hands raised. "Victor, please. I'll get the money. Just give me more time." "Time's a luxury you don't have," Victor said, cocking the gun. I moved before I could think, stepping between them, my hands up. "If you want money, you deal with me, not him." Victor laughed, but his eyes flickered to the window. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. His smile faded. "You set me up." The door crashed open, and Torres' team stormed in, guns drawn, shouting commands. Victor dropped the gun, his hands raised, his face a mask of fury. Daniel collapsed, sobbing, as the officers cuffed him. I stood there, my heart pounding, watching my son be led away in handcuffs, his apologies drowned out by the chaos. Torres approached me, her expression grim. "You okay, Frank?" "No," I said, my voice hollow. "But I will be." They took Daniel and Victor to the station, and I followed, giving my statement under the fluorescent glare of the interrogation room. Daniel confessed everything. The gambling, the debts, the plan to drug me. Lisa was picked up an hour later, her denials crumbling under the weight of evidence. The vial, the papers, my photos, it was enough for charges of attempted fraud, conspiracy, and assault. I drove home at dawn, the sky bruised with purples and grays. My house was quiet, the new locks gleaming, the rifle still propped against the couch. I sat in Ellen's chair, her photo in my hands, her smile steady and sure. I'd fought for our family, for the truth, but it hadn't saved Daniel. He'd face years in prison, his life unraveling because of choices he couldn't undo. I thought of Elena, the woman who'd risked everything to warn me. I'd find her, offer her that job, a chance to build something new. And I'd keep building, too, tables, chairs, a legacy that honored Ellen's memory, not Daniel's mistakes. The pain was still there, sharp and raw, but so was the resolve. I'd lost my son, but I hadn't lost myself. If you've been moved by this story, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more tales of truth and redemption. Let me know in the comments what you'd do in my shoes. Would you fight for family, or let them go? Thank you for listening.